We want to welcome you again to the Wednesday night Bible class for the Stonecrest Church of Christ. It is always a plum picking pleasure that is presented to us each Wednesday night to come into your homes, your places of abode, your workspaces, wherever your sacred spaces are, with messages that are predicated upon what God has already said in His divinely inspired, inerrant, and infallible Word of God. We are in our continuing series, Living in the Cemetery of Regrets, where we are looking at the story of Joseph, particularly the brothers of Joseph, who lived with regret for a decision that they had made almost 40 years earlier by throwing Joseph into a pit in response to the dream that God gave Joseph. So that's the genesis and the background of this series. And tonight, I want to suggest to you again, in relationship to Joseph, how that God used the detours in his life to develop him for what the destination required. Let me repeat that again. When you look at the events of Joseph's life, God used the detours. And what I mean by the detours are the stuff that Joseph went through to fulfill the purpose of God to him in that dream. Now you'll remember in the earlier verses of Genesis chapter 37, God has given Joseph actually two dreams. One dream had to do with the fact that he and his brothers were out there in the field. And while in the field, they are tying up grain. And Joseph's grain elevates itself above their sheaves. And I'll remember, a sheaf is nothing but, collecting grain and then tying it off. And then the tying it off is called a sheaf. Well, somehow in the dream, Joseph says sheaves had elevation over the sheaves of the boys. That's the first dream. The second dream was he said he saw the moon and the stars and the suns doing obeisance, bowing down to him. It was those two dreams that got in the craw of his brothers to the point where they said in essence, we're going to bow to you. Let's just see. And this is one of the reasons they're going to throw him in the pit. Because while he's in the pit, they are over him. And it looks as if the one doing the bowing and the one doing the subservience is Joseph himself. But what this lesson teaches and what it argues is that God uses, listen to me carefully, God uses the pits in our lives. God uses the detours in our lives in order to develop us for what is going to be required of us when we reach our destination. And so last week, we talked about how that God gives clarity about the destination. You see it on the screen there. God gives clarity about the destination. When God showed Joseph the dream, he clarified, lean in, he clarified the destination, the end point of the dream. In other words, what God did not show Joseph was the process that God was going to use to get him to the palace, to his purpose, to his destination, where those boys, including his father, were going to bow down to him. God clarified the destination. What God did not clarify is the detours on the way to the destinations. And we looked at that last week. And tonight, I want to suggest to you that God uses detours to develop what the destination requires. And then in the weeks to come, I'm going to show you how God's detours are actually his delivery routes. And then finally, I'm going to show you that God's timing is always perfect, even when it feels painful. Well, now let's look at the second one. God uses detours to develop what the destination requires. Listen to me carefully. Very seldom is your life's purpose in a straight and vertical line. Let me say that again. That excites me. Very seldom is your life destination, your life's purpose, your life's destination given to you or experienced by you in one continuous, watch this, straight and interrupted line. Let me tell you what I mean by that. I'm 74 years old. God has graciously blessed me. Ever since I was 8 years old, God put it in my spirit, in my heart, in my desires to be and to become a preacher. Let me say it again. Since I was 8 years old, I knew what I was going to be. In fact, I knew what God wanted me to be. At 8 years old. Now, I want you to watch this. At 16 years old, I became a preacher. I wanted to be one when I was 8. I became one believing that God called me when I was 16 years old. At age 18, I went to a small religious private college in Marshall, Texas, on an academic scholarship to study ministry to become what I wanted to become since I was 8 years old. Okay. Let me back up again because you need to follow the reasoning here. I said, very seldom is your life's purpose in one long, continuous, straight, and vertical line. What I'm saying to you is some of you have had to zigzag to your intended purpose and destination. But I'm sharing with you mine. And I am doing at age 74, 70 plus 4. I am doing what I desired to do since I was 8 years old. Call to preach at 16 years old. Went to college at 18 years old. Studied ministry. Found my bride of 54 years to help me to do ministry. Now watch this. God didn't have to zigzag me. All my life, I have been in ministry. Since even when I was in college and while staying in college, I took a job. I was married. I had to get a job and raise a family, a wife. One kid came, then another kid came. And then I told my wife to stop drinking that church water. Something is happening right through here. And so I took a job working at a milk plant called Borden's Milk Company. Even worked there full time. Not only during the summer, but throughout the semester. But I was still pursuing ministry. So my life has been one straight, continuous line. I'm doing now my life's work, my life's passion, my life's purpose has been to preach the gospel of Jesus Christ. But I'm looking at some folk tonight. I preached to hundreds of folk on Sunday and thousands of folk throughout the weeks and the months. Your life has not been one straight, continuous line. You have zigzagged to your purpose and to your destination. Well, that's what's happening with Joseph here. God has given him a dream. God has clarified that dream. And in the dream, the destination of Joseph is going to be a position of elevation where his brothers and even his father is going to bow down unto him. But in order, oh my goodness, listen to me carefully one more again. God showed him the end, the destination. His destination was going to be a ruler. He's going to be a governor. He's going to be second in command in all of the land of Egypt. He will live in the palace. Joseph would end up a baller and a shot caller. But in order for God to get him to the palace, God had to detour him. I'm going to show you that in the dream, God never showed him the pit. In the dream, God never showed him that he would work for a man by the name of Potiphar, and Potiphar's wife is going to try to rape him. And when she was unsuccessful in raping him, she accused him falsely, and he ended up in a prison. And so, but that's never seen in the dream. See, the pit is not seen. Potiphar's house is not seen. The only thing that is seen is the palace. Joseph didn't see that once he went to jail, for 2 whole years, he would be down there. And he was incarcerated for the wrong reason. In fact, there's a young lady looking at us tonight. Oh, she has a beautiful story, and she has a beautiful spirit. She's my play daughter, and her name is Sonia Pearson. Sonia was mistreated by the justice system more than 25 or so years ago. Having been mistreated by the justice system, got through the justice system, got 2 undergraduate degrees, 2 graduate degrees, and then within the last year and a half decided that she wanted to be an attorney. The same justice system that mistreated her has now become her life's purpose. But she had to be a part of that criminal justice system. Now to make corrections to that criminal justice system. You see how God zigzagged her to her purpose? There's another young lady, love her to death. Her name is Angela Hatchett. Angela went 7,000 miles across the world to work in security in what is the former Soviet Union space. Come real close, lean in. 7,000 miles. She got up just this past Sunday in church, and we all celebrated and shouted with her. She said God gave her a job in the same area. Listen to this, 60 miles down the road in Columbus, Georgia. Say what? You mean you go 7,000 miles across the world in Eastern communist Europe only to find a job in the same area? Watch this, 60 miles down the road. See how God zigzagged her? And listen, that's probably your story. In fact, my wife and I were having some conversation when she wanted me to clarify what I am now saying to you. She had heard me make some remark about the GPS, and I'll get to it again tonight. And she wanted some clarity on that. And I said, honey, let's just look at your story. She went to school, undergrad school. We started school same day. Her life's work was to be a classroom teacher. Some teacher had impressed her back in grade school, middle school, or high school, and that's what she wanted to be. She wanted to be a classroom teacher. On one occasion, I even asked her, well, why did you choose elementary as opposed to middle school and or secondary school? And I remember her telling me, she said, honey, I wanted to be one of the first to make an impression on them. I wanted my impression to be real early as opposed to real late in their educational journey. So that's why she chose. Meaningful, extremely meaningful. So she went to school and then graduated and became a classroom teacher. And then I asked her, I said, honey, after a 40-year stellar education career, where did you end up? She said, well, honey, you know where I ended up. I said, well, yeah, I do, but I'm talking to more than just you. I'm talking to this great audience here tonight. I said, where did you end up? She said, well, I ended up a school counselor. And I said to her, that's not why you went to school. I said, you went to school to follow your passion, to be a classroom teacher. And in the early grades. I said, but you ended your educational career, and she has impacted thousands of kids who have become lawyers and doctors and actresses and actors. You've impacted a whole lot of young people for good in California, in Boston, Texas, even here in Georgia. We go sometimes to high school basketball games, high school football games, and kids and their parents come up. Miss Barclay this, Miss Barclay that, Miss Barclay this, Miss Barclay that. And it gives her a great deal of meaning for life to know that not only has she impacted kids, those kids have come back. Some of them have come back to say, thank you. That's meaning for life's work. But I said to her, now, you ended your career, not as a classroom teacher, you ended your career as a school counselor. And then I asked her, how did that happen? Now, I know how it happened. Let me share it with you how it happened. She got so good at testing her kids in school. Principal would come by her room and see how her kids behaved in testing, how she responded to their testing, their conduct, the decorum, while she was testing the kids. And word got out that Miss Barclay does an exceptional job in testing the kids. So the principal took notice of that, and he said, Miss Barclay, I want you to become testing coordinator in the school. Well, to become testing coordinator was in the job description of the school counselor. And in order to be the school counselor, you needed a master's degree in counseling. Well, she didn't have the master's degree. She had the bachelor's degree, but she didn't have the master's degree. But she was doing work that required a credential that she did not possess at the time. But the principal said, oh, you gonna be my testing coordinator, a responsibility that belonged to the school counselor. So what he decided to do was to hold the position of school counselor open for almost 2 years until she got her master's and her credentials in counseling. Now, you see how God zigzagged that thing to her? He wanted her ultimately to counsel students, to impact them in that kind of way. And although her initial passion was for a classroom teacher, and occasionally she would even substitute. So some of that desire was still fulfilled in her because she still, on occasion, got a chance to teach. So she's never got away from teaching. And yet she ended up school counselor. Do you see the zigzag? And I'm talking to people here tonight where you become discouraged and despondent because your life's work was not in one straight continuous line. And Joseph is going to help us to understand and to appreciate something about that notion on tonight. Now, I hold in my hand. Well, interestingly, I didn't start my time, so I can preach as long as I want to up in here tonight. I don't know where I am. All right, but seriously, I want you to see something. I hold in my hand a book that I had the privilege of writing the forward and the preface to. The name of the book is Beyond the Cotton Fields. It is a story of survival and success. The book is written by my golf partner, in fact, the treasurer of our church and the chairman of the board of trustees at Stonecrest Church, Dr. Raymond Crawford. And look at the title of it. It's Beyond Cotton Fields. It's a story. Listen to this, of survival and success. You're talking about a beautiful, interesting, thoughtful, insightful read. Parents, you ought to read it, and then you ought to give a copy of it to your children, particularly your college students. And it traces the journey of Dr. Crawford from his days over in North Carolina when his mother died at an early age, had to be taken and raised by his grandmother. And then by the time he went off to college, when he went to college, all of a sudden the love of his life, his grandmother, it dies on him while he's matriculating in college. He worked hard trying to get into college to get an education because he wanted to get beyond and out of the cotton fields. He didn't want that hard work. Now that hard work made him and molded him and it impacted him. He didn't like it. He didn't like picking that cotton. He didn't like picking that tobacco. He didn't like it. He missed time out of school in order to work in the fields. And so now he knew that his way out was to get himself an education. And in order to get that education, he went to college, he got great grades, became a part of some military academy there in school. I think ROTC, some that had to do with the military, got in the military, and he spent more than 22 plus years in the military. Because at each stage, at each setback, at each struggle, what he was reminded of those cotton fields. And boy, he did not want to go back to, see, he's at home right now, said, teach that book, Barclay. He did not want to go back to those cotton fields. And so he disciplined himself, went to the military, went up through the ranks, and he retired as lieutenant colonel. As a part of that journey, spent some time in Vietnam, where he shed blood, got a Purple Heart, shed blood for this country. The sacrifices that he made. And then worked in the Pentagon, briefed generals who briefed the President of the United States. A stellar military career. Then he left the military. And he pursued academia. He then became, through discipline and rigorous study, vice president at Morehouse College here. And if that were not enough, then left the academia, went back to high school and became principal. See the different zigzags, see the different turns, and his book catalogs those struggles. And if you're interested in a copy of this book, just reach out to us at Stonecrest Church, and we'll certainly put you in contact with Dr. Crawford. He has his own website. But I've just shared with you Sonia Pearson. I just shared with you Shirley Barclay, and I just shared with you Angela Hatchet, and I just shared with you Dr. Raymond Crawford, and then I even shared with you, watch this, my own story. See, my story was a straight line. Watch this. Didn't have to zigzag anywhere. One continuous straight line. But what I've said to you is very seldom is one's life purpose in a straight vertical line. Can I share one more personal caveat here? About 40 years ago, I prayed a prayer. I asked God that one day I wanted the privilege of being able to found, that is to establish, a congregation from ground up. The Lord has blessed me with some great churches, and I thank God for them. We started small, we grew them larger. But I asked God for the privilege. I asked God if he would grant me the request of my heart, and that is to start a congregation from ground up. Well, the Stonecrest Church is the answer to that prayer that I prayed 40 years ago. Now, when God, okay, y'all missed, you missed it. I prayed the prayer 40 years ago. God answered the prayer after 31 years. I'd forgotten that I prayed it. And I certainly did not want it under conditions that it occurred. But nevertheless, here are God's people. I remember one of my elders now, he was just one of our good brothers then, by the name of Harrell Thomas. The day that we moved in, and he'll remember clearly what I'm about to say. I don't even have to finish. He can finish it for you. The day that we moved into this facility over here in Henry County, we started it over in Stonecrest community, over in DeKalb County. He came to my office, and almost with tears coming out of his eyes, because he was a part of the starting, he was a part of the struggle, he was a part of all of that. And he looked at me and he said, B, look what God has done in 18 months. Within the founding of our church, with 8 men in my house, and he was one of them. Then to a house in our suburbs, a house in our community, where we would gather for parties and stuff like that in our community. We were there one Sunday, and then we moved to an event center, which just was a glorified name for funeral home. It was a funeral home, but they had retrofitted it, and they were still using it as a funeral home for certain occasions, but sign out said an event center. We were there for 18 months. And what I'm saying to you is simply this. Here's a prayer prayed 40 years ago. 31 years later, God answered it. And then I can tell you congregations that have started, and they're still in storefronts. Some have even dissolved themselves. But God had purpose for these people. But it was not a straight line. We had to zigzag in order to get where we are today. And that's why in a couple of months we're going to be celebrating our 9th anniversary, and we're going to be celebrating and we're going to glorify God from where God has brought us and from where God is taking us to. All I'm saying to you tonight with these personal caveats and stories is that, like Joseph, God clarified the palace. God clarified the destination. But in order for him to get there, God had to take him through a pit, Potiphar's house, a prison, and none of that showed up in the dream. Okay, now, why did God detour him through those different stops? Are you ready? Here is the reason. Because at each stop, God was developing something that Joseph was going to need because the destination required it. Oh, B, what did you just say? I said, when God allowed him to go through the pit, God's going to teach him something in the pit that he was going to need when he got to the palace. When God detoured him to Potiphar's house, gave him responsibility over all of the house of Potiphar, he was learning organizational management. He managed Potiphar's house and Potiphar's servants. And God says, I need to teach you some managerial skills because one day I'm going to send a famine. And somebody is going to have skill development to manage an overflow of crops. Because after 7 years of overflowing crops, the economy is going to turn. And there's going to be 7 years of poverty, 7 years of plenty, and in the 7 years of plenty, followed by the 7 years of poverty, you better learn how to save and discipline and manage in the good times for what you're going to need in the lean times, in the bad times. And then watch this. While in Potiphar's house, Potiphar's wife tried to rape him. When she couldn't rape him, she lied on him. And he ends up in prison. Well, what's that going to teach him? It's going to teach you how to make a comeback. How that people can accuse you falsely, but be sure it's a lie. Be sure it's false. You may have to spend some time incarcerated, but while incarceration, don't waste that time. Develop your prayer life. Develop your discipline. Get over your bitterness. Don't let your false accusation create in you such a bitterness that it doesn't make you better. That's one of the things that I admire about Sonia Pearson. She could have allowed her mistreatment by the criminal justice system to make her so bitter that she becomes angry at the world. She determined, oh, it ain't gonna make me bitter. It's gonna make me better. So much better that I want to spend the rest of my life seeing that nobody else within her purview has to experience what she experienced. You see, life vicissitudes can make you bitter. But rather than to make you bitter, life's vicissitudes ought to make you better. Now, let me just be brutally honest with you. I don't know where I am in terms of time here. So let me just run ahead. I'll be back to finish this up in the weeks to come. But what I want to show you, let me give you a couple of truths to take home. I want you to watch this. These are truths that travel. Let me give you several takeaways. I got about 10 or 12 of them. I won't give them all to you, but let me give you 2 or 3 of them because I want you to take away some stuff here. The first thing I want you to take away is this. God may reveal the destination before he reveals the directions. Ooh. Let me say that again. See, remember, God clarified the dream for him. And in the dream, he says, now, Joe, one day these boys are going to bow down to you, just like these sheaves bow down to your sheaf. And stars and moon and sun are going to bow down to you. Now, he's not, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. So God revealed the destination. But what God did not reveal were the directions to that destination. God didn't give him a map. God didn't trace stuff out for him. God didn't say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is going to happen this way. God didn't do that. God revealed the destination before he reveals the directions. Let me give you another truth. I'm going to give you 3. The dream shows where God is taking you. The detour shapes who you are to become on the way. Oh my goodness. Let me try it again. The dream shows you where God is taking you. Those 2 dreams show where God was taking him. It was taking him to a place of elevation where folk were going to bow and do respectful obedience to him. But the detour, when God put him in the pit, when God put him in Potiphar's house, when God put him in the prison, God used those stops to shape who you will become on the way to where I'm taking you. And so that's the way we have to look at life. Those pits that you're in right now, God's trying to teach you something. The false accusation against you, God's trying to teach you something. And the first thing he's trying to teach you is to make sure it ain't true. Now, if it's true, then there are certain consequences that you have to face. But God allows things, situations, circumstances, even pain, to come into our experience because God wants to teach us a painful lesson, an important lesson that's going to help you when you get to where I have purpose and destined for you. And then finally, Joseph received the revelation in a field, but he received the preparation in a pit. Before I let you go today, I want to be real clear on what I just said. Joseph received the revelation in a field, but he received the preparation in a pit. Well, I tell you what, I'm going to call it quits there tonight and encourage you to join us again next Wednesday night as we continue to develop this notion of God allowing the detours to develop us for what our destination requires. And until then, may the Lord of the harvest bless you, and may he bless you real good. Oh.